A very good morning to all of you. I hope you guys are doing well. A confirmation about the audio, please. If the audio is clear and available, thank you. Sneha, even if it takes you 2 hours, okay, it took you 2 hours to plan an essay. Fair enough. So these are the initial periods. So it will take you some time. Okay, don't worry about it. Is it okay to repeat the asked quotation in the essay? Not as a point of argument, but as a kind of a point of reference that this is what we are talking about, or this is what the essay is going to be about. So, for that, yes, you can, but not as a kind of a quotation to authenticate your argument. No. So, today again, we shall be taking a look at this particular topic. And here again, as we told, or as we had a discussion about it yesterday as well, here also we will try to understand what is the requirement of this essay. And after that, I want you to think about this essay on your own and try to bring out the perspectives for this essay on your own. That should be the aim here, ideally. So, here, when we talk about this particular topic, this is philosophy of wantlessness is utopian, while materialism is chimera, is a chimera. So, what are the keywords here, and what is the meaning of this essay that we understand, that we are able to extract out of it? So, think about it. Yes, good, Ilma. Ilma, I think your issue regarding inability to get in touch with people has also been resolved. If not, by latest today, it will be resolved. So, what are the keywords here? Keywords here is wantlessness, utopian, materialism, and chimera. Chimera here represents what? What is chimera? It is in a kind of an illusion. Okay. So, chimera here represents a kind of an illusion or an illusionary state, so to say. So, now what is it that you can basically think about what, as the meaning or the inference of this topic? So, inner satisfaction followed by acquiring happiness. People live a simple and fulfilled life without material possession. Misbah, we include some Ashoka, Buddha, science, polity, social, etc. But when I see topper copy, there is so as of now, Misbah, please understand the topper's copy. Again, I will reiterate: if you have that expectation that you have just started writing an essay, and within 4 days your essay will be as good as a topper's essay, then everybody would have been able to secure 150 plus, isn't it? So if it would have been that easy to create a kind of an essay with all the kind of a flow, with everything included, and with all the punch included in it within the 4 to 5 days of span, so then that is too much of an expectation to keep. It is like an expectation that I will start the preparation for a subject today, and within 1 month, I will be master of that subject. So please moderate your level of expectation as well. When we take a look at the various different copies, there is a kind of an improvement which happens, which is observed. For example, one of your friends' copy that I was looking at, and basically in the two essays that he had written, automatically the second essay that I took a look at, it was much better. So please have a kind of a understanding that this is not a particular area where you can work out to be a genius or a professionalism out of this within the 4 to 5 days span. Anybody who's having that kind of an expectation out of themselves, please moderate your level of expectation. Otherwise, why would you need to have the essay session at all? You could have some model answers, you could have some toppers copies, and at the end of the fifth day, if you are able to recreate a 150 plus essay, then why won't the other candidates be able to do so? Okay. Shanawaz, I took a look at your essay, and it is in your essay that I observed that the two essays that you had written, the second essay was much better than the first one in terms of what it wanted to represent. So, what is a common strategy to handle all questions, and what are the areas or topics that cover almost every questions or aspects? There is, so basically you are trying to search for a kind of a magic wand that if I study particular this particular thing, then I will get rid of, or I will be able to answer all the questions, and then I will have those keywords that I will play with. So I have shown you the keywords from where the philosophical essays are revolving around. I have told you how to interrelate or interlink it with the current perspective. It is up to you now to induce a greater amount of practice. The more amount of practice that you carry out, better your essay will be. Ask your friends that how they are writing your essay, their essay, and the third or the fourth essay that they are writing, automatically there will be a kind of a greater connectivity in that. Okay. So here, the meaning of this essay, if I infer the meaning, so wantlessness is what? Where you don't have significant amount of desires, where you are able to curb your level of desires that one faces. So that is wantlessness. You don't want anything. So philosophy of wantlessness is utopian. Utopian, something which is too ideal to be achieved, which is impractical in real sense, but it is almost idealistic. So something to be too idealistic to be achieved. And materialism is a chimera. So here, first of all, you need to be able to expand. What do you mean by all of these? So a kind of a philosophy where someone doesn't want or doesn't desire anything in their life. That kind of a philosophy in itself is impractical to be achieved. But on the other hand, once a person gets stuck into that cycle of materialism, then that is an illusion from where you can never get out of it. Okay, so that is the meaning of this particular essay. I hope the meaning is understood. So, here basically, when we talk about wantlessness here, you need to be able to expand these four terms. So wantlessness, what is it? What do we mean by wantlessness? Then after that, what is utopian in this case? Is utopian, that means impossible to achieve. Okay, right? Then why is it that wantlessness is desired? Is it needed? Why is it that wantlessness is needed? So here, when we talk about the aspect of or the philosophy of wantlessness, that is to give you inner happiness, self actualization and realization. So that is what you have to talk about. So here you have to be elaborating upon the aspect that it helps fulfill the, or simple words, helps attain happiness. It is something which will help you attain a kind of or a level of happiness. Then reduces the level of dissatisfaction. Good. Kirubagar and Abhijit, both of you have converged on the same point. That is, attain a peaceful state of mind. Then be more productive. Then concentrate on self actualization. Yes. Simple living, high thinking. Yes, Amrit, that is what you have to talk about. Then middle path to imbibe upon. That will be your eventual conclusion, Manoj. After analyzing all of these, that should be your eventual conclusion, that the middle path should be chosen, and middle path holds the key. Increase selflessness. Okay. Increases selflessness. Then this induces the motive of service for others. Okay. You cannot carry out service for anybody, you cannot help anybody if your own desires are unfulfilled, right? So that is where wantlessness comes in. If you want to build a better society, if you want to build a kind of a harmonious coexistence in the society, in the nation, in the family, then your own level of desire should be curbed quite significantly. Okay, so that is why it is needed. Now, what are the limitations to wantlessness, to achieving wantlessness? Why achieving wantlessness is difficult? So, why is it that achieving wantlessness is difficult? Because it needs self control, yes, self control. And you will always be needing something, right? So, in case that you try to achieve a state or attain a state of wantlessness, then basically it is your needs which will always, in a way, motivate you to get more, right? So, fulfillment of needs or desires, right? The basic necessities portion, yes, and have to overcome greediness, hard work. Basic necessities are something everyone wants, as it needs high level of motivation. Great amount of self control is needed, discipline is needed. Okay, human made up of from particles, hence always its tendency is to avoid getting sad or to get happy. That is by nature. We are selfish. You can use that. Why not? By nature, innate nature is to be selfish. Then sometime change us into greedy. Okay, together growth of, then source of happiness, yes. So needs or desires are sources of temporary happiness. Okay, that is correct. Low self-esteem and future and fear of future possibilities, right? Fear of missing out is what you are getting at. Good. Okay. So here you can talk about these aspects as well. So just for your reference, wantlessness is utopian, materialism is a chimera. Okay. So here basically, what are the factors which make it achievement of wantlessness, why it becomes difficult? So you have the issue of self control, fulfillment of needs and desires. That is a basic necessity for which the humans they strive for, the people they strive for. So that brings the inner motivation. So here you can also see that in the case of a complete wantlessness, in cases of complete wantlessness, you come across the situation where lack of motivation or aspirations, right? Materialism itself is cause for wantfulness, yes. And in case of COVID vaccination, the developed countries try to accumulate vaccines. This comes from their selfishness. But unless developing countries are vaccinated, eliminating COVID, that is an interesting take, Amal. A lot of difference in the world today than ancient where wantlessness was achieved. So here you cannot say that a complete wantlessness is achieved. Can we have a situation where a complete wantlessness is achieved? So in that case, you cannot be a part of the social fabric anymore. You have to seclude yourself from the family bondings. You have to seclude yourself from the bondings in the society, because as long as you are connected to that, you will always be desiring or requiring something more, right? So here one needs to get rid of worldly possessions, and this would include detachment from social and family ties. Okay, the detachment from social and family ties, right? It is only possible with one's death, right? Correct. And Pakistan agreed to Jammu Kashmir led many decades of skirmish. Can we cite here that the spelling of cite here is incorrect, Labdi? So that gives a completely different meaning to cite. So can we cite here that Jain monks are utopians? Not only the Jain monks, but if you take a look at the entire philosophy of Jainism as promulgated at that point of time, and you would study about it in your portion of ancient history when you study about Buddhism and Jainism, you would always come across the fact that the reason Jainism could not have that great amount of a reach, despite the fact that when you had a situation where powerful kings such as Chandragupta Maurya, they adopted the path of Jainism, still Jainism could not significantly succeed and could not have its influence far and wide, was because of the fact about the very stringent laws and norms which pushed you towards the extremity of wantlessness. So that is something which is not easy to be followed, right? That is something which is not there for, and in order to achieve that, you always will need to get rid of all the material possessions, all the worldly possessions, and that is where it is simply impractical. That is why even the kind of difference in opinion which existed between the two sects at that point of time, which were the two sects of Jainism that existed at that point of time, are we aware of that? Digambar and, no, Tirthankars were different. Shwetambar, good. So you had Digambars and Shwetambars. So even their difference of opinion was due to that, the kind of an allegation that one of those sects, one of those groups, they were in favor of a complete level of wantlessness, while the other ones, they said it is simply impossible to achieve, because it is said, as it is postulated and theorized, that at that point of time you had a severe drought like condition, lack of food which was present. So that is where many of them, they consumed the kind of food which was not allowed, which was not prescribed, and that is where the difference in opinion emerged. So here you have to balance wantlessness with the practicality of life. Okay, so need to balance it with the practicality of life. Okay, and then after that you have to talk about materialism. So what is it? First of all, Bhardwaj, a very nice point, that Buddha proved wantlessness is not utopia, and Alexander proved materialism is a chimera. So, better than that, let's take a case of or any of these examples where you can prove that wantlessness is a utopia. It is something which is impossible to achieve. Complete equality, like social, economic, and political, is also utopia in a country like India. You can say that, but in that case, you will be concentrating only upon one keyword, right? So when you are elaborating what you mean by utopian, because then you can talk about it. So what is materialism here? When we talk about materialism, right? Materialism, any of us? Consumerism, okay. Existentialism, good. Capitalism of Marx can be an example. Desire of getting more, the desire or greed to attain more. Okay? Physical things, endless things. Can we have a manifestation of materialism which is not only about consumer products and consumer goods? Unsatisfied wills, want for material things. Yes. So, Shanavaz, what will be that particular aspect of materialism? Fame is one of them. Many manifestations. Here, fame, power, then intellectual consumerism is good. Desire or lust, unending need for recognition. That will come with the aspect of the desire for fame. Then, commodification of things. Yes, commodification of things. Right? China is example that wantlessness is utopia, and Bhutan is an example that materialism is a chimera. Okay. Publicity will be something which is very similar to fame. Fulfillment of the purpose of living. But the purpose of living in itself, that is what this entire topic is about. The entire topic is about that what should be the purpose of living. Should the purpose of living be driven by philosophy of wantlessness or the philosophy of materialism? Now here, when you talk about the materialism, so can it have any benefits? Benefits to materialism, because the limitations are immense. But what about benefits? Can we have them? Keeps one motivated, aspirations to attain more. Yes, balance here can we give? We can give an example of Mahatma Gandhi for every man's need, not greed. Yes, you can talk about that. Then motivation for hard work. After that, sometimes it's benefits for others, yes. Helps envision our future, helps make a convenient future, ease of life. Here also, you get inner satisfaction that is attained, right? Social, physical, and mental development, family status, increase in production of materials leads to increase in economy. So makes the world a better place, yes. Secure mind, okay. Self actualization by realization of desires, right? Is one of the psychological needs of person. Very good. So that is where you have to understand and talk about that how materialism is bred upon, why it is so much desired. So it is the psychological need for a person to be identified, to have a kind of a name or a fame associated. So the important for the psychological need. Okay. Yes, it would be very temporary inner satisfaction. It would be very temporary self actualization. Everything would be very temporary in this case. All the benefits that you talk about, these are all going to come into the category of being very temporary. Okay. Helps you envision your future or create a convenient future for yourself. whole world's competition to explore space, boom their economy. So, can we say that materialism also motivates excellence in a way? When everyone wants to attain something, they will try to outperform each other. So, can we say it in a way promulgates excellence, eventually brings excellence, right? Yes, by the sense of competition, competition, right? Growth of nations and states, living standards also leads to destruction. Example of forest bill. Okay. Hampers creativity, or does it induce creativity? Materialism, after a point of time, it can also induce creativity. You cannot say that modern art form is not something. Modern art form is very much inspired by materialism in many of the aspects. So you cannot have the case that modern art form is not as good as you had the earlier cases. Is it possible that we can use two anecdotal story to explain two phrases or words in one essay? You can use the two anecdotal stories, but don't use it simultaneously. And this is where I had a comment as well for a couple, one of you, the copy that I looked at. So basically, what I observed was that same in the same perspective, you had multiple examples listed simultaneously. So it starts appearing as a kind of GS answer. So there also you have to diversify your perspective there. So when you write the essay, so if you have a story to be put somewhere else, try to imbibe the other story in that argument at a different place. Social welfare induces growth. Growth is fine, economic growth, right? So better lifestyle. Okay. Now, why is it a chimera? That also needs to be elaborated upon and stressed upon. That why is it a chimera? So here, why is it a chimera? Because it is a kind of an illusionary path. Here, there is no end to greed, need, or greed and desires. Greed and desires shall always be in existence in the society as well. So, in the case of the nation as well. So, those greed and need at the individual level, at the level of the society, at the level of the nation is something which is always impossible to be chasing. Always the level of desires and greed, they keep on escalating. The entire process of self actualization, self realization in itself is very temporary. So, very temporary in nature. Okay. Then, after that, illusion. Then, interpersonal relationships are damaged, are hampered. Okay. Self growth is not possible or is difficult. Okay. So that is basically the entire aspect that you can think about in this particular topic. So is the topic now understood? Can Will you be able to write the answer about it, or will you be able to write or create an essay about it? Yes, perfect, good. So this is how we can proceed ahead with elaborating. Now, in cases when it is the topic is as word driven or as keyword driven as this is, oftentimes it becomes very, very difficult to find the various perspectives. So in that case, please don't get worried by that I'm not able to find the horizontal expansion of the topic. So there, just start elaborating upon the each and every word here. So what do you mean by wantlessness, why it is that wantlessness is impossible to achieve, and what do we mean by the limitations to achieve wantlessness? So all of that you need to be talking about. Okay, now after this, we come to the portion of focus areas, and this is where we deal with the GS based topics. Can we conclude saying reducing materialism to extent where wantlessness is in a controlled state will lead to a blissful life? In general, yes. In general, the conclusion for the essay will always be in the range of, or in the track of, where you talk about the fact that how the middle path, the path which the path which was also prescribed by Gautam Buddha. So that how it is the ultimate uh, pathway for fulfillment, self fulfillment, and for happiness. So that is where you always have to stress upon the importance of the choosing the middle path in any aspect of life, to avoid extremities, because this essay is also about talking about the extremities. So extremities are impossible to stress upon or to live upon. So always middle path is much more sustainable. Here you can bring the issue of development versus the sustainability debate as well, right? So it always needs to be sustainable. Okay, right? Can we conclude by stating that for some people, wantlessness achieve those things that is achieved by materialism for others? No. Okay, no, that won't be the case. Please write and explain the meaning of quotation. So we have done that. Did you join the session late, Ajay? I hope if you have joined the session late, then you can always take a look at the recordings. Okay, so here I will tell you the meaning of the essay once again, but I won't hold the entire discussion once again. So the meaning of the essay is that philosophy of wantlessness is utopian, means that the wantlessness is what, when you don't need anything in your life, when you don't desire for anything in your life. So that is the philosophy of wantlessness. Now utopian, that is too ideal to be achieved, too ideal to be realized, right? Whereas when we talk about the materialism is a chimera. Chimera here refers to illusion, an illusionary state. That is, if you chase the philosophy of materialism, then that is a never ending race. You will never be at, at a stage where you will be completely satisfied that now I have attained everything that I ever wanted. That stage never comes in life. So that is where wantlessness is utopian, but materialism is chimera. So always you have to choose the middle path. I hope that is understood. Okay, in these kind of topics where two dimension are asked in this situation, we need to elaborate both the dimensions one by one, or both the dimensions should be interconnected. So it is, if both the dimensions are interconnected, no, not required for both the dimensions to be interconnected. No, you have to talk about the different perspectives, or both of these areas and keywords that have been highlighted. You can talk about it separately. Chimera refers to an illusion. Chimera, I don't know if you have read it. Chimera is oftentimes used in the portion of chemistry as well. But nonetheless, chimera refers to a kind of an illusionary state where it is impossible to be achieved, impossible to be attained. When you think that you have attained it, then there is another facade and another thing that is left to be attained. So it is always something where you hope that you have achieved it, but you are unable to get that. For example, let's suppose, we have talked about it previously as well. Let's suppose you go there to buy a new phone, and you have accumulated all the money that if I buy this new phone, my life will be happy, or let's say if I buy the new motorbike of Royal Enfield, my life will be fulfilled. Now, then after that, I will go to Ladakh on a road trip, I'll chill out, and wantlessness will be achieved. But once you do that, after some point of time, you would want something more. You would want that, okay, I need maybe I'll get a better SUV next time so that the trip becomes better. And then when you get that SUV, maybe I will have some money next time so that I can stay in a better place. So that is an illusion that keeps on increasing. You will never be at a state where you say that by getting a material good, I am happy perpetually. Okay. So I hope you understand. Okay. Right. It can't be interconnected, but correlation is important. Yes. So now we come to the focus areas, and this is basically associated with the GS based topics. Shivaji, chimera, such words might not be known to us. Then how should we overcome it? So it is absolutely possible. It is absolutely possible that you might come across a word whose meaning you have no clue about. Don't write an essay on that. I'll give you an example. If you allow me, I will give you an example of such a situation which did emerge, I think it was 2015 or 2016, where the question was that if development is not engendered, it is endangered. Now, here, what do you understand by the meaning of the term engendered? What do you think is the meaning of the term engendered here? Gender equality. Okay. Both genders. Okay. Inclusivity, safe, not a gender bias, gender unbiasedness, not covering all aspects. Okay. Equally, gender equality. No. Yes, Yogender, you are correct in that case, partially. And that is to create, to manufacture, to build, right? So, engender in itself has got two meanings. One is to build upon, right? And the second is to build upon or to create something. And second is a kind of a gender equity. Now, if you take a look at give rise to, yes. So here you engendered as a term has got two meanings associated. Now, if you consider one of the meanings, that is to give rise to create, to give or to build something. So in that case, the meaning of the essay will be completely different. The meaning of the quotation will be completely different. That if development is not built upon and is not created significantly, then the development process will be endangered. And the other meaning will be that if you don't provide gender equality and gender equity in the process of development, then development in itself will be short sighted. Development won't be sustained, right? So, this is the mistake that many of the candidates committed. They took the other meaning of engendered, which was not so apparent, that is to build upon. So, there, many of them took that interpretation. It was in the Hindi translation of this essay where everybody got a clear cut idea that this is about the gender equality bit. And that is where there was a lot of controversy created that year. You had even Shashi Tharoor raising that question in front for the DOPT. And DOPT at that point of time did promise that we will give everyone equal marks for this essay. Not equal marks, but we will give adequate weightage, whether you have had one interpretation or the other. You need not worry. We will give adequate weightage for that. But eventually, many of the candidates that I know many of them who took the meaning that of engender to build upon something, they got very less marks in essay. So UPSC took the other meaning. So whenever you have these kinds of dilemmas, always advisable to go for a kind of a safer topic. Okay, don't get entangled in these topics. Okay, which will bring some amount of confusion in your level of understanding what you write. So whichever brings that level of confusion, don't choose that. Okay, I hope that is understood. The meaning of this, however, is to bring gender equity and female, or why only female, participation of all genders in the process of development. Okay, that is the meaning. So here the essay required you to talk about that how development requires a sustained development requires a female labor force participation, inclusivity in terms of the finances, inclusivity in terms of knowledge, inclusivity in terms of the narrative for development, how development should happen. So you cannot have development when almost half of your population is not a part of that developmental process. So that is the interpretation. And I think you will be able to write an essay out of this without an issue. Anyone facing an issue in this topic, please let me know. Any issue that you're facing in this topic, in understanding the meaning, etc., of this particular topic? No? Good. Okay, what is not understood? The meaning is not understood, or how to write an essay is not understood? You have to try to write an essay on your own, guys. Sometime you have to take the step. Okay, sometime or the other, you have to take the step to be able to write on your own. Okay, we'll talk about how to write this. So, here, what is the meaning, first of all? No, you have to write only on one meaning. Meaning will be if gender participation is not a part of development process. Basically, development is lopsided and temporary. Lopsided and temporary in nature. Okay, so development is lopsided and temporary in nature if gender participation is not allowed. So here, when we write the topic of this, you have to talk about initially about that why if development is not engendered, what is the meaning of this? So what is the meaning of engendered? And here you have to consider all the genders. You don't have to be restricted to male and female itself. You have to consider all the various different genders. So engendered means making everybody a part of that process, that development. Now, development is not engendered means what? It will end up creating a kind of a excludes many from the developmental path or process. Then after that brings about a patriarchal mindset, excludes more or almost half of the population. You curb the creativity. Here, talk about the contribution of women in society and development. Yes, Ilma, very good. That you will provide in the form of way forward. Okay. So that is something which needs to be provided in the case of way forward. That is gender budgeting, etc. Then untapped potential of women, yes. So excludes half of the population. So contribution of women in society and development. Here you can cite examples. You can talk about in the field of science, right? You can talk about in the field of even for that matter, political aspect, governance. You can talk about environmental conservation. You can talk about the field of sports. Any area that you consider, you can talk about it. So here you can talk about social justice and development, Jyotiba Phule. Here you can talk about economists, education, yes, environmental conservation. Then you can talk about welfare, not so much. You can talk about here economic growth, you can bring about entrepreneurs as well. Here you can give the examples of uh, luminaries such as you have Kiran Majumdar Shaw and all of those you can always bring to the table. So here you can bring about entrepreneurs. Okay. Then social justice and development, Mother Teresa, yes. You can give the example of after this, can we mention the necessity to strengthen the institution and increase the transparency with respect to female security in field of sports and in entertainment? All of that you will be able to provide, or you need to be providing in the portion of way forward, that what needs to be done to ensure that development is engendered. In that portion of your topic, you have to talk about. So then science and tech, very good, Anusha. And tech, Madam Curie. Then after that, sports, then cultural and entertainment, You can talk about the examples of, let's say, Rukmini Devi Arundel. You all would have studied about her. You all would have come across her example. So, Rukmini Devi Arundel, when you talk about that, how she herself was single handedly responsible for keeping alive the cultural tradition of which particular point? Which particular cultural aspect was it that she kept alive and she was particularly involved in the promotion of that? Yes, Sushmita. Correct. That is dance. Yes. Then after that, you can talk about bureaucracy and institutions and administration. So here you can talk about from Kiran Bedi to, let's suppose, one of the best examples of women administrators. That is, you had the ex Prime Minister, that is Mrs. Indira Gandhi. Now, she also, at that point of time, now please understand, the world in a way talks about Margaret Thatcher, and Margaret Thatcher being one of those representatives of gender equality, representatives of women empowerment. But in our country, almost 15 years earlier or prior to Margaret Thatcher and the era of Thatcherism, as it is referred to, we had the rise of, again, one of the very strong female leaders, women leaders that independent India has witnessed in the name of Mrs. Indira Gandhi. And her contribution can or can never be neglected or can never be put under the table. So, for example, be it the liberation of Bangladesh or establishing a kind of a different setup in general. So you can always talk about that, uh, right? Then see, Alan Turing was bisexual but invented Enigma decoder. So this is not about your orientation. This is not about the sexuality. This particular topic is about the gender participation, okay, and excluding a particular gender from the developmental process. So that is what you have to talk about. So don't mix and match. So here, while that is correct, but then what you are pointing out is correct, but not the requirement of this topic. As per Nehru, national interests range from own interest to creating peaceful order at IR to serve own interest. Hence, at national policy, yes, you can use that, obviously. Can we include the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern? Absolutely, yes. Jacinda Ardern can be and should be included. Now, here, after this, you also should include the areas, that is limitation to gender participation. That is stereotypes. Then after that, family and social foundations. Glass ceiling effect, perfect. So, do we understand the meaning of glass ceiling, or anybody having any issue in that? So, we understand. Okay. Glass ceiling is basically that when you have a kind of a limitation in terms of growth, you cannot grow beyond that, right? So, that is the glass ceiling. So, oftentimes you would hear in various fields such as journalism, medicine, etc., if you will find a kind of a female who is doing particularly good or who has risen to the top of the ladder, you will find the quotation being used that she has broken the glass ceiling. So she has managed to rise through the foundations that the society, the expectations that the society had set for her. Okay. So then inequality, lack of opportunities, right? And this can be of various different types. For example, education, exposure to outside world, then limitations in terms of the kinds of jobs. Here we can include that in another point. Limitations in kinds of jobs, right? And this will also be commingled with lack of freedom, lack of secure work environment, work environment, patriarchal mindset. Then after that, development of health sector. Yes, the contribution can be considered, right? So unequal pay for equal work, for equal work, okay? And is that understood? Double and triple burden, yes. Double burden of household, right? Then lack of support in terms of family, in terms of workplace. Here discrimination can be added in this portion itself. Discrimination. And here, please don't commit the mistake of not considering the third gender. Yes, please consider the third gender as well. Please don't do that. That here, while writing the essay, you write about only the female population and the female participation. That should not be the case. You should also include the perspectives of the third gender. Also, okay. So these are few of the limitations. Many occupations are fixed, are gender fixed. So limitations to the kinds of jobs here, right? Can we conclude with a line as famously said that if we have to look at development of a nation, just look at the condition of the woman? Yes, you can talk about that. Lack of facilities for the third gender, lack of equal behavior. Early marriage is one of the biggest issues, but that early marriage also comes from the family and social foundations, isn't it? Unable to have make family decision, unable to make their own decision, let alone family decision. They are unable to even make their own decision. If let's suppose tomorrow a girl child, she wants to have a decision that I will pursue, let's suppose, a kind of a branch or a kind of a profession which would require me 10 years of hard work, and then after that maybe I get a job, I don't get a job, then in that kind of uncertainty, many of the families, they won't be ready to or readily inclined to provide her that opportunity. But then in the case of the male child, that opportunity is always provided. And morality in case of the third gender, LGBTQ discrimination is there, which you have to talk about. Okay, now after this, once you have written all this, then after that you need to be able to write way forward. or before that itself, before way forward, how development is benefited, or simply how development process benefits. So elaborate upon this point as well. First of all, when we say that the benefits associated with development, so you have a simple economic development, as simple as that. So for example, when we talk about the economic development, so here you can cite the various different reports by IMF, where IMF has cited that how if in India we increase the female labor force participation, our economic growth rate can increase by almost 3%. In our country, we have very little amount of female labor force participation, where the female labor force participation in India is somewhere around 30%, whereas the competing labor force participation in China is as much as 61%. So that brings about a huge scope. So, huge scope to contribute. Then, after that, more hands on the deck. Yes, more hands and minds. Yes. Then, after that, equality in the society. That in itself will bring about a significant equality in the society, in itself will bring about or take away many of the developmental woes that we are facing. Okay. Then comes economic independence. Independence. Then innovation and creativity. And creativity. Right? That will herald a new era of growth, will bring growth to various different areas. Right? So this is how developmental process will benefit. Less conflicts and better conflict resolution. Conflicts and better conflict resolution. Okay, right? If gender inequalities that we are discussing are also based on some natural, is that case, can we also discuss positives of gender inequality? No, because the question in itself is not asking you to discuss that whether gender inequality is can it be beneficial. The question has got a connotation that gender inequality is never good. Okay, now after this, what can be done? Can be done. Gender budgeting. Then after that, gender justice. Yes. Then after that, education, security. Then rights and freedom. Then infrastructure, supporting infrastructure. Government initiatives and schemes, yes. Greater representation. Okay, so that is how you can proceed ahead. So is that now understood? Now you will be able to create an essay out of it, right? Awareness, yes. Okay, I hope now we can write an essay out of it. But see, you will at a point, some point of time or the other, you will have to try to write an essay on your own without a help. So the first few essays that you will write will be a kind of a, for the lack of a better word, it will be very trashy, right? It will not be very good. So the first few essays, even though it is a different matter that we suffer from a kind of a personal bias, that what I have written is the best essay in the entire world and nobody could have written an essay which is better than this. So that bias does exist. But you have to understand that the initial essays will be trash. Initial essays won't be that good. But that is where the need or the requirement of practice comes into play. Yes, if you have been particularly good in essay writing, let's say during your graduation days, during your school days, if you have participated in these essay writing competitions, done well in life there, then it is a different scenario altogether. Then you don't need that much amount of practice. You automatically have that panache or have that tendency to recreate or have a good creativity once the pen comes to paper. But I'm assuming that majority of us, we don't have that kind of a background associated, where many of us, we do commit a lot of grammatical mistakes, lot of areas where we don't have the adequate and the apt words which come to the mind. So in those areas, always suggested, in those cases, always suggested to practice and let it go to waste. Initial essays won't be that good, fair enough, but that is how you will learn. Okay, so please try doing that. Now we come to the focus areas. So overall, if you analyze the previous year questions classification, all the 10-15 year paper classification, you will find that all the essay topics, they have been revolving around either the social issues, economy, international issues, internal security, democracy, administration, polity, science and tech, environment, education, health, sports, and also quote based or philosophy or ethics based. Nowadays, you have a greater stress which is laid upon the quote based or the philosophy based essays. A lot of emphasis is laid upon that. Okay, so that is where we have discussed this, how to approach this. Today, again, I will hold a discussion for a couple of these more. But then, overall, you have to understand that these quote based or philosophy based essays will be something that you will have to ponder upon. The more you are able to think about them, the more perspective you are able to. So for example, wantlessness is utopia and materialism is a chimera. Now there also, many of you had cited the examples of international relations, international policy. Now that is the level of creativity that needs to be attained. Okay, so that is where you have to work upon this. How to work upon this, we have talked about. But then you cannot simply go to the exam hall thinking that whatever kind of essay will come there, I will simply on the spot think about it and will be able to recreate an essay out of it. So there you need to carry out a basic level of preparation. You need to work upon certain basic key focus areas and develop your fodder material, your content for those particular areas. So here, these are the key issues around which the questions, they keep on revolving, the questions, they keep on being asked from this area. So here, if we are not aware much about sports news, then what to write essay on? Choose another topic. That is why UPSC gives you 4 different topics to choose from in each section. Okay, so here, uh, Shanavaz, send a mail. We'll take a look into it and do it immediately as soon as possible. Okay, tomorrow's class timing will be from 7:30. but we'll confirm you by mail. Okay. And after the break, I will be able to confirm you again. So probably it will be 7:30. Okay. Now, these are the key issues. So, how tomorrow we are having the last session? Yes, mother. Yesterday also I have had this announcement which I had done in the class, that Monday we did not have a class. So Monday the class was cancelled. So tomorrow we are going to have a class for compensation for that, and tomorrow is the last session. Okay. So so here, how gender better conflict resolution in case of gender equality. So there have been various different studies, researches which have indicated that if you have an engendered workplace, if you have a workplace with a greater gender representation, the amount of conflicts which arise are lesser. So that is why UPSC had also asked a question, and it was, I think, around 10 years back, or somewhere around that time, that what if women ruled the world? So that is where the examiner was actually stressing upon the fact that if women were in charge of the world, then the world would have been a better place, because then you would have various different issues to be taken care of, lesser amount of conflict, etc. Okay. Sneha, it depends on the timetable. It depends um, on the availability as well. The environment session, when it will be conducted, let me take a look, and then accordingly I'll be able to confirm. As of now, I cannot confirm that, but depending upon the time schedule, I will let you know. Okay. Now, so these are the key issues that you need to prepare your fodder material on, because these are the issues which will help you deal with the direct questions associated with these areas, but also the questions of philosophy, ethics, quotation based topics that you have. There also, you will find the utility of these. So, for example, Mahatma Gandhi, governance, women, health, vulnerable communities. Now, these are the areas that UPSC has been stressing, and we will take a look at the relevant quotations. We'll not be discussing all of these, but few of the relevant ones. We shall be discussing the important quotations, the questions which have been asked from these areas, and then after that, we shall be moving forward. Okay. Yes, Selma, you can send. Right. So here, for example, if we take the case of Mahatma Gandhi. Now, in the case, or in the context, now these are the PYQs here. In the context of Gandhiji's views on the matter, explore on an evolutionary scale the terms Swadhinata, Swaraj, and Dharmaraj. Critically comment on their contemporary relevance to Indian democracy. Now, this type of question is not nowadays, it is not asked. So this type of question, it was something which was very prominent up till 2016-17. After that, it was not asked. So here, what do you think would could be written in this? My Experiments with Truth is a very good book. Yes, that is enough. So what is the meaning of Swadhinata, guys? The meaning of Swadhinata. Independence, correct. Freedom, correct. So that is what Swadhinta is. Okay. And Swaraj is self rule. What is Dharmraj here? What is the meaning of Dharmraj here? Ethical rule. Follow the Dharma. Okay. Rule of justice. Here, Dharmaraj is not associated with religiosity. It has not got a place for religiosity. It talks about the good and bad, where the good prevails, where social justice, natural justice prevails. That is Dharmaraj, rule of righteousness. Correct. So that is the Dharmaraj. So each of them, meaning you have understood. This is independence of freedom. Then you have self rule. Then you have justice. Okay? Or good governance, driven by justice and righteousness. Okay? So, here you have to, first of all, the question itself tells you explore on an evolutionary scale. That explore, how is it that, or what is the meaning of all of these? How is it relevant in today's day and age? That is something that you need to be able to explore. That is something that you need to be able to talk about. And then critically comment on their contemporary relevance to Indian democracy, how relevant they are. So, in the case of Indian democracy, okay, is there any issue in this? Or will you be able to critically comment? Means you also have to provide criticism to many of these cases, that how, for example, when we talk about Atmanirbharta, or for example, a complete uh, condition of Atmanirbharta, now that can have a different interpretation, or Swaraj can be interpreted as Atmanirbharta, and that is where you need Suraj, or a kind of a good governance setup, rather than only Swaraj is not sufficient, only Swadhinta is not sufficient. Swadhinta not from the foreign rule, Swadhinta from the biases, internal biases which prevail, Swadhinta from the various different hurdles in the society, the discrimination in the society, the ills of the society, the aspects of social strife that we face. So those aspects of Swadhinta, that needs to be percolated into the Indian society. Then Dharmaraj is interpreted oftentimes as very different meaning for that. So that is where it is oftentimes understood to be one of the revivalistic movements, but that is not the case. It is very far away from that reality. So what should be the condition? Okay, Suraj means that is good governance. Okay, Nagraj, no, in any of these, you need not only talk about the context, or you need not talk about the views only of Mahatma Gandhi. You can explore these ideas. Okay. And here, basically, be the change you want to see in others. What does that mean? Be the change you want to see in others. So here, this is a famous quotation of Mahatma Gandhi. So here you will observe that what needs to be written is that whatever we expect the world's reaction to ourselves, we should mirror that, right? Because what we do is a reflection of our own self, and that is how the world perceives us, and the world then retaliates in its own manner. Okay? So do the things that you expect from everyone else. Good. Life initiative can be quoted, yes, right? Give respect, equal. Good. So then we will explore more aspects about Mahatma Gandhi and his principles. Before that, we'll take a break. We'll take a break for 15 minutes and we'll be back, and then we will continue. Okay, so let's take a break and be back. And after the break, I will, after discussing Mahatma Gandhi's quotations, etc., we will also take up another question for from 2022, and we'll hold it up for discussion. All the major questions for 2022, I will provide you with the written model answers as well. For the case of forests are the best case studies, we have provided you with a kind of a model approach earlier, and rest of them I'll be able to put it forward for you tomorrow itself. So, but I want you to not rely upon those. I want you to have your own level of thinking. Okay, so let's take a break and be back. A confirmation about the audio, please. If the audio is clear and available, kindly confirm the same. Thank you. So now, here, when we talk about Mahatma Gandhi, you also need to be talking about the principles involved. So, for example, Mahatma Gandhi always had a kind of an understanding and a belief that he propagated, that when we talk about the ways to achieve a kind of a goal, so also the means to achieve it is equally important. So importance of means to achieve the end, right? So it is not only the case that if you have to achieve a goal, do anything and everything possible to achieve it, but you need to follow a righteous path. So this talks about the importance of righteousness. Importance of righteousness. Okay, so that needs to be talked about, that why it is important to follow the correct approach, the correct path. And here, this can also be and always be utilized in order to also add authenticity to the other essay topics that you are writing. You can always quote Mahatma Gandhi or cite Mahatma Gandhi's ideals and beliefs regarding that. Then the idealism and active service, where he also talked about the requirement of indulging in active service. And he talked about that how, in order to, or the Gandhi seven sins that you would have read in the portion of ethics, integrity. So those sins that you have to talk about. Then truth always triumphs is another one of those principles that Mahatma Gandhi always based all his actions upon, that it is upon this particular basis, it is upon this particular ideal that he drove the narrative of satyagrah, right? So the path towards achieving the end here also comes into place. Then untouchability and his fight against untouchability, that also needs to be understood. So he toured the country for the upliftment of Harijans and his struggle thereafter, right? Then after that, sought an evaluation or evolution rather than the revolution, because Mahatma Gandhi was in a stage or had a kind of an influence upon the society where he could very easily say that abolish the entire caste system, abolish and go for the annihilation of caste, what was advocated by B.R. Ambedkar. But then Mahatma Gandhi also had a belief that if you suddenly upend the entire social structure of the society, it can bring about a significant amount of discomfort. Now there can be arguments made in favor, can be arguments made against this particular principle and belief, but overall, this is what drove his principles against untouchability. And he called the people who were socially discriminated by the society, he called them as Harijans, right? Or the God's people. So that is where he toured the country in order to raise awareness for them. And he also ensured that, and his various quotations also are there to the fact where he said that if my scriptures tell me to in a way discriminate against a particular caste, a particular sect of the society, then I won't follow that religious scripture anymore. So he said that untouchability is basically custom masquerading under the name of religion, where basically you have the untouchability if it is promulgated and advocated by the various religious tenets, but that is simply customs of the society. Untouchability overall is the custom prevalent in the society, and we have masked it, we have provided it a facade in the name of religion, in the name of religious upmanship or the religious righteousness. We are carrying out that because untouchability is something which had been prevalent in the society and is prevalent and to be found in various different religious sects. So that is where he sought and looked at untouchability as a larger ill, as a larger issue plaguing the society. Then, in the case of the society as well, he had a very strong view for cleanliness, right? So he's thought that, and he always talked about that how individual and society, they are not independent of each other, but individualistic actions in a way, and after a point of time, they also end up shaping the social actions and the social processes. So here, individual acts make up the societal or gives direction to the society, provides direction to the society. Then cleanliness was again something very close to his heart. So that is where he always propagated that cleanliness should be maintained at the individual level in the region that you are living in. That should be clean. If every individual ensures that, the society in itself will be much cleaner place. The nation in itself will be much cleaner place. And with cleanliness comes a greater comes a greater amount of intellectual awareness, a greater amount of intellectual productivity and creativity. And he was against over reliance on industrialization, because Mahatma Gandhi was convinced that basically before the era of industrialization, you had a lesser problem of poverty and lesser problem of unemployment, because individual centers would be the places of production. But once industrialization happened, that is when the industrial centers, they began to be located in the urban areas, and that is where the rural impoverishment began. That is where lied the genesis of the impoverishment of the rural masses. And this is something he was convinced that in order to get rid of this issue of poverty, which is plaguing the rural area, and the various different types of rural distress, we need to be self reliant in terms of our production. And each of the villages and the village centers themselves, they need to be the centers of production. They need to be the centers of a kind of excellence in a way. So favored decentralized means of production, so that you had gram swaraj, right? And each of the village centers, they would have self sufficiency. Okay, self sufficiency in production, in economic might at the village level, to provide a pathway to economic freedom. This is the reason why he would always end up promoting the Swadeshi goods, right? That whatever has been produced in our country, whatever is produced domestically, you should continue to use that. You should always be encouraged to use that, so that some other person finds some meaningful employment, some other person finds a meaningful source of income associated as well. So that is where self sufficiency comes into picture and comes into place. Okay, then after that, women empowerment. For women empowerment, he was pretty certain, and he had a clear cut mindset and a directionality associated, that when we talk about women as a workforce, or not even a workforce, as a important member of the society, he said that unless and until we empower the woman, unless and until the woman is self sufficient and is also confident enough, till that point of time, society's self realization and development is a far fetched idea. So, when women, whom we all call abla, become sabla, all those who are helpless will become powerful. Right? So, that talks about the empowerment of women, the social, political, and economic empowerment. Right? Abla and sabla meaning. Abla is a term which is used in colloquial Hindi, which talks about. So you would have heard about this. I don't know if you have heard about it. You would have heard about the phrase abla nari. That is a poor, helpless woman, right? So that is a term which is always used, and abla means associated with helplessness. So if the woman whom we call abla or helpless, if she is empowered, then all those who are helpless will become powerful, right? So that is, so Gandhiji's ideals and the views that he propagated, that in itself is something, if you take a look at it, and all his views overall, that in itself is something which is very inspirational, that has held inspiration for the various different leaders of the world, various different global icons, from Martin Luther King Jr. to even Nelson Mandela, to the modern age life of Barack Obama. In all those cases, Mahatma Gandhi's ideals have been deeply cherished. In fact, Albert Einstein went ahead to make a comment that somewhere in the lines of that, many years from now, nobody would believe that such a person with such ideals indeed walked in the flesh and blood amongst us. That what he meant to say was that it is impossible to even imagine that such an individual with such kinds of ideals actually did exist amongst us. So his ideals are quite significantly luminary and quite significantly having a kind of a foresightedness. So it is a different matter altogether when you hear to, or listen to B.R. Ambedkar's interview that he gave to BBC in the later stages of his life, where he simply went ahead to contradict Mahatma Gandhi to an extent where he said that Mahatma Gandhi in himself, and this is as per the interview, this is not at all my interpretation. So please don't think about it that I have this interpretation, and don't get offended by it. So basically, B.R. Ambedkar, and this is available on YouTube as well. His interview to BBC is available on YouTube as well. You can always go ahead and have a look at that, and that will in itself will be pretty insightful for many of you, those of you who have not explored their lives to such a greater extent. So B.R. Ambedkar said that Mahatma Gandhi put a different set of ideals in his the journal that he published in Gujarati, and he put forward a different set of ideals in the journals that he published in English. And there he said that all his ideals were there for the world to see. If he really believed that the discriminated section should be uplifted, he should have gone ahead with the annihilation of caste. But there also, there's a kind of a biasness associated with what B.R. Ambedkar had said. So that is where you have to understand that you take the, as of now, we can only take Mahatma Gandhi's words for the face value and what he believed in. His movement of satyagrah, now that in itself, now at that point of time during the freedom struggle, one of the common phenomena that you would find was that there would be agitations and revolts for anything and everything in local places, and people would appeal to Mahatma Gandhi to raise their issues as well, each of their issues as well. So Mahatma Gandhi, he did not directly go to a particular region and start raising an issue at hand. First of all, he would send a fact finding committee, a fact finding committee of the local leaders and also people he would trust. And that fact finding committee would find out what the real grievances are. And then he would analyze whether those grievances were just or not. And eventually, he would seek to resolve those disputes by negotiation. He would seek to resolve those disputes at the early stage itself. If not, then he would launch the agitation on the path of righteousness. And he was absolutely convinced that in any struggle that you carry out, in any kind of movement that you carry out, the purpose is as important as the path that you choose. That is why after Chauri Chaura, he simply withdrew the non-cooperation movement. Okay, right? So political participation of women is something that he deeply encouraged, and that can be highlighted by the participation of large amount of women leaders such as Sarojini Naidu, Aruna Asaf Ali, Sucheta Kriplani. All of them, they were active members of the political struggle of the political class. So that is where he sought women empowerment by the greater political struggle and political participation. Mahatma Gandhi, mind you, is also credited with one of the largest mass participation in modern day India. So, before him, also, all the movements and agitations that were carried out, they did not have that scale of mass following. And the reason behind that was very simple. And that reason was that before him, a lot of people could not connect with the cause. Mahatma Gandhi, in all his movements, in all his speeches, he ensured that the connect would be established with the women section of the society as well. If they start participating in a struggle, then there will be a greater empathy, there would be a greater homogeneity in terms of achievement of purpose, and in the end, there will be a greater political participation achieved. He would discourage child marriage and condemnation of parda system and dowry, which he termed as the ills of the society, again, which the people they are masquerading in the name of actual religion, but then it is a part of the local custom. So, for education and literacy, he was very clear that education without values is of no use. So, literacy is not the end of education, not even the beginning. It is one of the means whereby man and woman can be educated. Literacy in itself is no education. So, just knowing the various facets or just knowing the various facts in life, that is not called as education, right? So, you have to differentiate between that. So, he talked about the importance of values in education. Importance of values in education. And without it, education is worthless. Now, this also has to be taken in the point or in the viewpoint of the times that he lived in. And the times that he lived in, at that point of time, there was a greater belief and a greater amount of discord which was happening, where it was always understood that what is the point of being educated, because education brings about an erosion in morality, education brings about an erosion in family structure, in family values. So he was very certain that education is required, and the importance of education and the value that needs to be laid to education system. Discipline as the most important aspect involved in education. It is the most important means in the society which can be used as an instrument of socio-economic progress, material advancement, political evolution, and moral development of an individual. So here it highlights the role played by in education and education system in the development of the society in general. Okay, that BBC interview is near of 20 minutes. Yes. Uh, And can we talk about political trusteeship given by Gandhiji for society? Yes, you can. And can I call Gandhiji as a philosophy, not as a person? He embodied philosophical setup, that you can say. Okay, right? And then for how Mahatma Gandhi is relevant to modern India, that is something around which essays are based upon and topics are based upon. Mahatma Gandhi, his beliefs and ideals and relevance to modern India. His ideals and their relevance to modern India. So, what is the relevance there? For example, governance. Now, governance needs one of the important pillars of governance is what? Inclusivity. Inclusivity. So, that inclusivity can be brought about by e governance, for example, Okay, that inclusivity can be brought about by greater participation. Now, how many of us here have gone through Gandhiji's talisman, which is provided or printed in front of the in the initial pages of the NCRT? Almost all the NCRTs that you would have studied from your childhood days. You have gone through it? Good. Those of you who have not gone through it, please go through Mahatma Gandhi's talisman, where he talks about that for the governance model and for the political setup, where he said that whenever you face a dilemma about whether the step that you are taking, that step is going to be good or bad, so think about the last person of the society, or one of the most uh, discriminated person, or most disempowered person of the society, and think about it whether that decision will benefit that person or not, and you will find the answer to it. Now that talks about the inclusivity in terms of decision making process in governance. This is very much similar to the Antyodaya principle. Antyodaya principle also you would have heard about. That is the development and upliftment of the last member of the society. Last member of the society does not mean the one who is living in the most far-fetched area. Last member of the society means the person who is disenfranchised from the benefits of the society, who is discriminated against by the society, who doesn't have the benefits or the equal opportunity as the rest of the society. So it is very similar to that aspect. Okay. Now, here, then you can talk about Gandhiji's talisman. Talisman for political governance and also decision making. The poorest of the poor. Yes, Dangar. Many experts say that Gandhiji's approach. So, first of all, when you are writing an essay, don't use the term Gandhi. Use the term Gandhiji or Mahatma Gandhi as a point of reference. Your individual opinion for a person, for an individual, might be different, but there, when you write the essay, you have to pay reverence. Okay, so many experts saying that Gandhiji's approach of decentralization or self-sufficiency is a utopia. Can I say that in a point of critique? You can say that. You can always say that self-sufficiency or a complete Gram Swaraj is not possible because interdependency is a must. But that is where the argument comes from, and the argument basically drives from the basic fact that earlier, before the phase of industrial revolution, in our country you had various different places specializing in certain product manufacturing. For example, woodwork, chariot making, etc. These would be the specialized centers. So that is where, if as an area you continue to do that, then you will always receive a kind of an economic independence because you will earn enough if people use Swadeshi. And that will also stand true in the modern day era of protectionism and modern day era of a greater amount of efficiency which is needed. But yes, critique can always be provided. Okay. Then can we use MK Gandhi or M Gandhi? No, don't. Please don't use that. Eventually, the office that you are vying for, the office that you will be sitting in, it will have Mahatma Gandhi's portrait on the back of your chair. Talk to any of your seniors who occupy the positions of the IS positions or IPS positions. You eventually see, the more you study about Mahatma Gandhi, greater sense of appreciation comes to mind. All the kind of misconceptions that do prevail, see, no individual is a perfect scenario. The problem arises is when we start seeing somebody as a kind of a perfect white sheet. Now, even a blot of an ink will think, you will create a perception that that person was not perfect. Fair enough, that person was not perfect. That person had, that individual might have flaws. But overall, if you take a look at the personality, overall, if you take a look at the views, the values that he possessed, now you cannot have anything but appreciation for all the values that he managed to propagate. Okay, so here basically social movements, so his relevance in the modern day age by the social movement. So various social movements you would also have witnessed, and modern India has witnessed. But in almost all the social movements, there is a vitiation in terms of the agenda. We have already talked about the case of the India against corruption and the social movement led by Anna Hazare, a Gandhian in himself and an ardent follower and believer in Mahatma Gandhi's ideals and thoughts. Now, thereby, that social movement could not achieve the success that it wanted because it veered from its path. It basically deviated from the ultimate goal. When you have a particular goal and you start setting many of the sub goals in between, then you end up deviating. Similarly, you had a recently conducted or in the recent past, you would have observed the farm agitations which continued for almost a year. Right now, in those farm agitations, what do you observe? You would observe that these agitations over a period of time, that led to blockades, that led to economic losses significantly, and eventually you had some of the fanatical groups taking over, where if you would have basically looked at the news, you would have followed the news, you had the horrific killing of an individual in the name of sacrilege, and it was a kind of a public lynching which was done. Now, that public lynching, imagine that in the time and age of Mahatma Gandhi, when there was a nationwide movement of non cooperation, one incident of Chauri Chaura disturbed him to such an extent that he came to a conclusion that society was not ready for this mass level of movement. As of now, he withdrew that movement. But in the modern day agitation, where we are so much driven by polarized world around us, we are so much driven by the belief systems that are ingrained upon us, that is where the means to achieve the end are no longer satisfactory. So that is where, or that they are no longer important enough. So here you can talk about the social movement importance of purposeful agitation. He never believed in being a rebel without a cause, right? He was not an individual that you would associate that every other day he is revolting against something. If that would have been the case, then every year you would have heard about another program, another revolt, another movement initiated by Mahatma Gandhi. No. Mahatma Gandhi was always a kind of an individual who believed that if you have a cause, carry out that struggle. If not, there is no point putting your and others' lives through those hardships. So that is where he talked about the purposeful agitation and the importance of satyagraha. Importance of satyagraha. Right. Then khadi and gramodyog. Now this is, again, you can also use it for atmanirbharta or the clarion call for Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, in matters of economy, in matters of defense, in matters of geopolitical strategy, it is the self sufficiency which matters the most, and self sufficiency which should be driven, or which should be the agenda driving the growth of a nation. So, this all talks about self sufficiency, bringing self sufficiency, and this would bring economic prosperity. It would bring economic prosperity amongst the masses as well. Okay. In the case of education also, you can talk about it. And here, self-sufficiency, yes. Green revolution to LPG reforms, all of them, yes. Here are the few quotations of Mahatma Gandhi. Analyze these quotations. Okay. All the quotations that I will provide to you, please understand. If you just read the quotation to ratify it, to rote learn it, that I will be able to reproduce it, that will never happen. You need to understand the quotation, then you will understand the relevance of that quotation, then you will be able to reproduce it as and when the time requires. So the greatness of humanity is not in being human, but in being humane. And humane, whenever you attach the term humane, that is always identified with value system, compassion, empathy, right? A kind of interpersonal relationship and social harmony. Okay, so humane talks about values, morality, compassion, empathy, ethical norm behavior, yes, empathy, right? And then live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you were to live forever. What does that mean? And this is no way associated with that you only live once or hashtag YOLO. That is not what Mahatma Gandhi meant. So live as if you were to die tomorrow. That means each day of your life should be filled with purpose. You should be wanting to achieve something. You should be working to achieve something. And learn as if you were to live forever. So, this is about utilization of the time given to you on the planet. So, here, this is basically about purposeful living or life of purpose, a life of purpose, and then importance of continued learning process. Now, in our case, in our life, the sad part is in the present day scenario, particularly in our society, the sad case is that we think about learning as an exercise that is carried on only up till graduation, and that is to attain a job. And we mistake the portion of literacy with the portion of learning. Learning is when you gain something new. Learning is not going through the books so that you get a job, right? So learning in our case is never considered to be a lifelong process. Even when you take a look at the various different stages prescribed by the scriptures, where they talk about the brahmacharya and eventually the grihast and the sannyas stages. So here education is restricted before the grihast phase, right? So once you have attained the education, then you lead a family life, you concentrate on the family. But there you have to understand that learning is a lifelong process. It keeps you relevant for the modern day and age. It keeps you relevant for the possibilities in the future as well. Then I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. So here, not only does it have a direct meaning about importance of cleanliness, but cleanliness not only in its physical manifestation, but cleanliness also in terms of the mental manifestation. That you need to have cleaner thoughts. You need to have a better thought process. If your thoughts are cleaner, if your thoughts are clearer, then always the outcome that you will attain will also be much more productive. So I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. Cleanliness. physical manifestation, and mental, or rather, cleanliness of mind. Okay? The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. So it takes courage to forgive. Forgiveness is not something which you can attribute to the weaker section, weaker portion, or weaker people. Weaker here doesn't refer to the physically weak. Weaker here refers to those who are not mentally that courageous. That is where it talks about. A man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. Importance of having the cleaner thought process. Okay. And this also talks about the aspect of when we what he thinks he becomes means be the change you want to see in the world. Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's needs, but not every man's greed. This is about sustainability. So, any essay topic, any portion where you're talking about sustainability, you can talk about this as well. Okay. Fourth quotation: we can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. So, we can never forgive means what? So, when is it that there is a requirement of forgiveness? So, for example, let's suppose somebody has committed a wrong against you as an individual. Immediate feeling, be it of the animals, be it of the humans, the immediate kind of feeling is what? That of a retaliation, that of a vengeance, that of a revenge, isn't it? Forgiveness is not the ideal that comes to the mind. So that is where he said, and here it talks about the emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, that learning to forgive and move on, that can be done by only the intellectual courageous one, the mentally strong, who have the ability to withstand any insult or any wrongdoing and still understand that that person might have done wrong under certain circumstances, and it is my duty to forgive that person. So that is the meaning. Okay. Suppressing anger and ego, yes. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. That is service before self. Okay. Forgiveness quote can I write in the criticism of judiciary in avoiding the capital punishment? Not in the criticism of judiciary, but in the society. See, it is if the society did not want capital punishment, judiciary would have abandoned awarding capital punishment long time ago. But our in general, the society wants that capital punishment to happen. Society, in a way, you have the development of a mob mentality, and that wants capital punishment. So there is that argument against that as well. So you here, if you can use that for the society, not for the judiciary. Okay. Now, before moving on to the portion of education, here let us hold the discussion for another topic, and that is the time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. Jail means reform, and purpose of forgive is also reform. Then why our jail system doesn't have two-star facility? Because then it will be a desirable thing to attain, going to jail and availing two-star facility. That is why. In thinkers based quotations, can I criticize the principles of the personalities? So, no, you can criticize that particular thought process itself, but then you cannot start criticizing the thinkers that, earlier he had given this quotation and that was flawed. What is the meaning of this? The time to repair the roof is when the sun is shining. Utilizing when there is opportunity. Prepare yourself earlier than the actual issue comes. Yes. Good thing doing at good time. Correctness of an action is determined by the time and situation, which is subjective. Safe environment when we have time. Before rain come, repair the roof is a literal meaning. Correct. Preparation for tough times. Good. So this talks about the timely preparation. Timely preparation to avoid adverse conditions or eventualities. Okay. So, to avoid adverse conditions or eventualities. So, here, when we talk about the timely preparation, so the literal meaning, as you have pointed out, the literal meaning is basically that before the rain comes, start preparing your roof or repair any of the issues that you have, right? So, that is the literal connotation of that. So, here, you can also think about it that worse or bad times will come. Bad times, they always come. Nowhere will you come across a scenario where always the good times will prevail. It is about preparing yourself for the eventualities of those bad times and how those bad times, they will in a way then have a lesser impact on your own existence. So that can be the expansion of the topic. So you need to be able to expand the topic as well. So expand the topic. Okay. Expansion of the topic talks about preparing for the bad times. Bad times will eventually come. Preparing for them reduces the impact. That will be the literal expansion. Then the perspectives that we can provide. What are the perspectives? Yes, we can go for the vertical, individual, societal, and national level as well. Uh, but forgiveness can only apply when the people feel guilty and realize their mistakes. If we forgive everything, then no differences between right and wrong. So does not mean that if you don't forgive an individual, does not mean that individual will correct themselves, can it? So many of in the present societal norms, many of the ills, we blame the history for that. So that is because we are not able to forgive. So if we don't forgive, then how is it that we will move on, right? So what can be the perspectives here? Okay, self-sufficiency in economic production. So economic reforms, for example, economic reforms. Now, these economic reforms need to be carried out when the economy is not significantly in distress, when the economy is functioning fairly well. If you carry out reforms at that stage, then you won't have to face the distress at all, right? Then, for example, financial inclusion. Even in economic reforms, here you can talk about jam trinity and financial inclusion. Then you can talk about defense preparedness. You need to bolster up your defenses at the peacetime so that the peacetime can last. You cannot go as we have been doing for almost 2.5 to 3 decades. Whenever there is a crisis at the border, that is when we get to the realization that we need these many amount of arms, ammunitions, these kinds of weapon system, and that is where the senior executives or the senior members of the armed forces, they go on a global shopping spree where they keep on buying arms on an emergency basis. So that cannot be the method for preparing for defense. So defense preparedness needs to be bolstered up at max during the peacetime. So needs to be spruced up during peace. Women security, very good. Now, security that you provide for the woman, now that is lacking in almost all the parts of the country. You do not have a secure environment in general for women, be it at the level of the family, at the level of the society, at the level of the let's say the working conditions of women. It is improving, but it is not absolutely secure. You cannot say it is absolutely secure. So in that situation, generally what happens is we are pushed into action whenever a major disaster happens, whenever a major accident happens. And otherwise you will see that largely the cases, they go unnoticed, the cases, they go ignored. That doesn't make even last page of the newspaper headline. So consistently we need to have that debate, and we need not wait for a disaster to spring up into action. Then protection of environment and climate change, right? Protection of environment and climate change debate. Medical preparedness, be preparing for civil services examination. Yes, that is also, but please don't write it in the exam. But yes, it is a way to understand the topic, that prepare for the examination when it is good. It is a good time. So prepare for the essay paper, not before the mains examination, but much before that. So that before the mains examination, you have an easy time. Okay. So Snehata, after Nirbhaya case, women issue taken much strictly, need to have done that earlier. But here I would argue, Snehata, that even after that sad and horrific incident of the Nirbhaya case, for which almost a decade has passed since that point of time, you still have very atrocious activities and atrocious forms of violence met out against the woman. And it takes a kind of an atrocious violence against women for the society to spring into action. Immediately, for a couple of weeks, you will find some action, and after that, again, it is followed by a complete phase of inaction. So, that is where it has still not managed to spring up or bring up the amount of change that the society needs. Then, medicines and healthcare, right? And Manoj, if precautions would have been taken, Manipur incident would not have happened. True. If that is true, if we had a better conflict resolution mechanism, and this is not, Manipur incident is not something which is And those of you who would study it in further detail in the portion of internal security, if you have not already, you would understand that this particular issue in Manipur between the Kukis and the Maitis, it is not something which has erupted all of a sudden today itself. It is something which has been in the offing for a very, very long period of time. And the lack of conflict resolution has led to a festering of this wound, and it is the worst kind of Frankenstein monster that has emerged out of it. So, the resolution of social discords, and misgivings, preconceived notions that you have. Then, after that, disaster management, and also that will bring into impact the importance of disaster resilient infrastructure. Resilient infrastructure. What we are seeing, good, Joe, very good. What we are seeing in the region of Himachal, now that is a complete and a significant amount of ignorance to the disaster resilient infrastructure. When Joshimath incident happened, everybody talked about how you have wanton construction and a kind of, in the name of tourism, you have an exploitation of nature which is happening. But after Joshimath went out of people's thought process and imagination, everything was forgotten. Then again, when that event of, or that incident of Shimla, and that incident or disaster of Himachal Pradesh is unfolding in front of us, again that debate will come, but again that debate will be soon forgotten. Then here, demographic dividend, utilizing demographic dividend. Okay. So when the time is ripe, when the time is apt, that is where you should utilize the demographic dividend before that time goes away. Then after that, COVID preparation, you can talk about, as the case in medicine and healthcare, that you need to bolster your medical setup and the healthcare setup before any pandemic or any disaster strikes, not at the time of disaster. Otherwise, you will always be left short-handed. Then, even for that matter, Harike, you had pointed out sports, right? It is said that the more you sweat, the less you fret. So basically, the more you sweat during the practice, better is the performance during the actual games, or in your case, in the exam. Issue of migration. How? Right time to hold the global leadership in governance, also sustainable development of agriculture. Good. Sustainable agriculture. Then skill upgradation, upskilling. Then at the level of individual, family, and society, or family or society, being mentally strong for hard times. Okay, then food security. Yes, you can talk about food security here itself. Food security. Then upbringing of children. of children. Understanding the people and members of the society, developing an interpersonal connect during the good times. Because at the times when the society is broken, fragmented, then nobody gives an iota of effort into understanding one another. So, better understanding in the society. Understanding in society. Building of social capital. Social and human capital. Okay, communal harmony, right? Maintaining good relations in our good times. You cannot repair the ship while it is sinking. Okay, then improving cyber security and awareness about cyber crimes. So, yes, you can talk about that as well. Cyber crimes, cyber crime, money laundering, organized crime, etc. That can be clubbed under one group, right? How can we elaborate on social and human capital? So social and human capital, you have to talk about the greater intellectual growth, greater and better availability of educational facilities, ensuring inclusiveness within the society, and a better development of harmony within the society. If you do that, that is the building up of social and human capital, which will help you during the bad times, where the people will help each other out. Okay, then is only perspective right in this essay? As in, what do you mean by that? Amal, there is a saying in Malayalam that if we sow the seeds in the good times, we can harvest the fruits in the bad times. Yes, you can always use that during the time when you are expanding upon the topic. When you are elaborating upon the topic in 100, words, there you can talk about this. Okay, so I hope this can be written. Then, after that, let's talk about another essay. Any issues in this essay, in understanding this essay, in understanding what needs to be written in this essay? No? Perfect. So now let's proceed to another one. Limitation scope is also there. Yes. For example, if you want to highlight the limitations in the scope, you can highlight the perspective that many of the times, unless and until the disaster comes, you don't know the exact uh, amplitude or the exact nature of the disaster which can strike. So that limits your ability to prepare for that bad time, because the bad time can be of any type. You can only prepare for certain things. So that is where there is a significant limitation or challenge. Okay. COVID-19 you will highlight in the case of medicine and healthcare. Then another one let's take up, that is a ship is safe in the harbor, but that is not what a is for. No advantage, disadvantage, way forward. In this, what can see this in itself, Misbah, understand this particular essay in itself is like a way forward. This in this essay, when you are elaborating even the meaning of this essay, which you would utilize 50 to 100 words, 150 words about elaborating upon the meaning of this, there you would always say that you should prepare for the bad times earlier, isn't it? That is what you are going to say. That is what you are going to write for all those aspects. So here, when we say economic reforms, when we say talk about defense preparedness, take the case of defense preparedness. What will you write there? You will write that in order to bolster the defenses on it, or in order to keep ourselves safe, we need to have a better defense preparedness before an actual calamity strikes on the border. So that is what, isn't it a way forward? Right? Limitations of this we have already talked about, that unless and until you have the foresightedness, or unless and until many of the times the disaster exposes itself, or the bad times exposes itself, we are not even aware of the extent of the disaster, isn't it? Are you able to understand how to write the essay, what to be written? I am writing it in points. I get a feeling that few of you, your understanding of the essay writing is also restricted in a point wise manner. Will you have the ability to expand on these individual points, or do you face difficulty in this point as well? Please let me know, because by a few of the questions I get a perception that when I am writing these points, what many of you are seeking is a kind of a detailed written essay that you can look upon and be frank with it. What is the issue that you are facing, Yogender? Please be clear about it. Only then will I be able to help you out. Please be clear. How many examples can we mention in a single question? You can mention many different examples. There is no limitation to it. Okay, will you be able to expand on any of these points, or is there a issue with the expansion of the points itself? And I am giving these points, but my expectation is that you will be able to write a few more of these. These are just the brief gist that I am able to provide. Okay, I can expand and also add perspective on my own. Okay, no issue. Are you sure? How to change the dimension with the change of paragraph? That is why paragraph spacing is there. If you ever get a feeling that your change in paragraph is going to be very sudden, always advisable to provide a subheading. All these perspectives need to be elaborated in a paragraph format, my dear friends. All these perspectives need to be elaborated in a paragraph format. For each perspective, around 75 words, one paragraph is enough. Yes, for one paragraph, around 75, in certain cases, even 100 words. Okay. Example, we are writing any perspective. Is it okay to write it in bullet points to explain it? No. You should avoid it. Subheading is not mandatory. You can do it, you can avoid it as well. It is not mandatory. Right? So, any issues that you have, any hesitations that you are facing, if you are facing any hesitation to ask in the session, where you might, and it happens that in the large grouping, many of the times you face certain hesitancy in order to ask the questions, you have my mail ID. Please feel free to write a mail. Okay, but please don't let those kinds of hesitations and doubts linger on into your mind. Any kind of hesitation which exists, do get in touch. Get rid of those doubts here and now itself. The time to resolve those doubts is not 2 days before the mains examination or 1 week before the mains examination. The time is now. Okay, can I make a flow chart in an essay? If the requirement is there, yes. How much time should we give to 2024 examination? Are you talking about the entire subject, or are you talking about essay? If you are talking about the entire subject preparation, as much time as you can, because 2024, not much time is left. You have a less than a year for prelims now. So as much time as you can give. And daily, it is not a kind of a fixed system where daily you have, if you sit in front of the table for 8 hours, you will have an output of 8 hours. It is not the case. Few days would happen, as a candidate you would attest to the fact that few days would happen where you sit in front of the books for 10 hours, you are able to extract an output of only 2 hours. Few days would happen where you are able to sit for 3 hours and the output is of 3 hours. So try to extract maximum output. Okay. How to develop a flow? uh, okay, I'll come to that. And my answers are not up to the mark, kind of mismatch happening. uh, okay, there's a hesitancy to share the answers. So there, please understand that when you are creating an answer for the first time, when you are writing the answer for the first time, it will never be up to the mark. But at the same time, you will have your own personal bias towards the answer, that I have written more or less what is required, and so always advisable. So that is why we have a kind of an evaluation system where we have the experts who have cleared multiple mains examination, appeared for multiple interviews. They are put in charge of the evaluation portion. So get their opinion. That is why I always say, send your copies for evaluation to IES Live. Don't send it to me. If you are facing any kind of hesitation or hesitancies there, send it to a IES Live and get it evaluated. Look at the feedback. Sometimes those feedbacks might be very unpleasant, but you have to extract more of these feedbacks. And I would have told you the the case of one of those individuals who now is a successful IS officer now. Basically, in the first attempt that he gave, he had no clue about what was asked in the prelims. The first attempt I think he gave was in 2015. He had absolutely no clue what was asked in the prelims. Before that, he was a marine engineer. So he came from that background. Now, he could not make sense of the questions itself. Second attempt that he gave, he had prepared quite vigorously and quite significantly. He was pretty sure about clearing the exam. He went up till the interview, but his marks in essay were so low that he could not get through. And that is where overall mains marks was low. So even if you perform well in interview, your overall marks will always be low. Then what he did for the next attempt was he started writing the essays, did not get it evaluated by the UPSC fraternity. What he did was he started handing out his essays to the DU graduates, the English graduates of Delhi University. Now imagine what kind of scrutiny an English graduate would do. Someone holding a master's in English, what kind of scrutiny that person would do. So they would basically even end up tearing his copy that this is the worst essay that I have seen, etc. But that is where he improved in that year. And in essay, in that year, when everybody was not getting very good marks in essay, he managed the marks of around 153, and that put him in a league where he got a double digit rank. I won't reveal the exact rank, but that is where he improved. So be ready to criticism and be open to criticism. Okay. And that is the only way to improve. And while we are jumping from one perspective to another, is it necessary to mention subheadings? So there, when you are if you are doing so, you can. Or what can also be done is you highlight. So your paragraphs should not be around 2 to 3 lines worth of paragraph writing. Your paragraph should generally consist of 5 to 10 lines on the minimum, where you are exploring a topic, where you are elaborating on the topic. And if you are giving the subheading, fair enough. If you are not providing the subheadings, then whichever portion in that paragraph talks, let's say at the individual level, at the society level, you underline that. For example, when you talk about the individual and society, so all these can be put in one paragraph. These can be put in one paragraph. Okay. So that is where you can have a better writing practice. Okay. After Ilma facing a difficulty in connecting the paragraphs while writing an essay. So you need not always connect to the paragraph, but at the end of that long paragraph, you need to, in a way, refer back to the topic. So, for example, this also proves that the right time to prepare is when the times are good, and that is the adherence to this particular topic's requirement. So that is how you can always harp back upon the same common point that will ensure that the topic is the node from which everything else is flowing out. Uh, my query is that while shifting from one perspective to another, is it necessary that it has the flow, same as introduction and body has? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Uh, Deepika, that is what I'm trying to convey. See, it is, and one of you had mailed it to me, and basically, and I won't take the name. So I had received a mail that there is a great hesitancy in writing the answer because one is not sure of the content. You have not written the answer for a long time. So there also, I had said the same thing and a simple thing. As of now, please don't expect yourself to be writing the best answers. What you are today, the level of knowledge that you have today, 4 months down the line, or even 1 month down the line, you will be a very different personality altogether. You can also adhere and attest to the fact that the amount of information and knowledge that you have today, it is much more than what you had 4 months back, right? So you will be a very different personality 1 years down the line, right? You will have a much different set of knowledge 1 years down the line. So please don't worry about writing the perfect answer from day one. If you are feeling any kind of hesitation in writing an answer, don't write an answer. Do one thing, don't write an answer to begin with. So what do you write? How do you improve your practice? And that is something which is going to help you in essay writing as well. When you have to write 1,000, 1,200 words continuously, do one thing. Any topic, any subject that you are comfortable with. Generally, I would take the case of geography because that is my subject, but I understand the level of discomfort that many of you share for that subject. So take any of the subject. Take the case of polity, for example, economy, for example, history, for example, any event or incident. Whatever is your point of view, whatever is your level of understanding, now try to create something out of your own. Try to write an article, let's suppose, about the present geopolitical setup. Try to write your own short article about, let's suppose, the parliamentary debates which have been happening, or whatever is your viewpoint about the present political setup, about the persistence of various evils and ills in the society. It is important to put pen to paper. We always, in a way, underestimate that role. Putting pen to paper, once you start doing that, initially the speed will be slow. Then after some time, when the speed will come, you will be very disappointed with the content that you are writing. Then after some time, you will be very disappointed with the handwriting. After some time, you will start comparing with the toppers that I've written it for 3 days, 4 days. At least now my level should be like the topper that we have seen. That is not how it happens. After 30 to 45 days, you will automatically develop a flow, right? You will see, and trust me when I say this, trust me for this fact, there are toppers who have figured their names in the single digit rank, who have practiced 2,000 answers before appearing for the mains exam. 2,000 answers. Many of us, we don't attempt so many MCQs. Imagine writing 2,000 answers. So, in a way, you are practicing around 40,000 to 50,000 words of writing skill. Only then will your flow will be such. And always understand, one of the biggest obstacle in answer writing or essay writing is that mind to muscle memory, right? What you are thinking, are you able to represent that on paper or not? Many of the times we think about something else, but our answer doesn't reflect it. And sometimes when I get a chance to interact with you in the offline sessions, a few of you have had a chance to interact, that is where you try to convince me that no, I actually meant this particular thing when I am writing this. You won't have that chance in the exam. So that is where the mains exam is for what? to understand you and your writing skill. Okay, what you are able to create. So that is where your personality is also judged. So it will come, a pick any piece of editorial that you like or that you have read, try to write your own version of it in without looking at the content of it after you have read it. That will induce the practice of writing, that will bring a better grammatical command over your language, that will bring or give you automatically an idea about when to go for paragraph breaks. The problem arises, most of us, we start writing answers that what are the statutory powers of the governor, what are the discretionary powers of the governor. So we always have the habit of writing in a point wise manner, right? So we don't learn when to give the paragraph break, when to give the spacing. So learn that by practicing writing. Writing need not be answer writing. Writing can be in any form. Okay. And I hope that is understood. Can I change the aspect by writing a quotation to provide a break? Yes, you can do so. Absolutely. It is open and it is up to your creative levels. Beyond certain word limit, it seems like I have no words left. And this I will associate with another question, that is, I'm not getting so much of perspective. This will come. That is why I always tell you, get into the habit of reading magazines, newspapers, and books. Okay. Monthly magazines ideally will always give you the portion of current affairs. But that is not why newspaper reading is suggested or why novels and books are suggested. It is your ability to think, and that critical thinking germinates. Stephen King, I have always cited him, that your ability to write comes from your ability to read. More you have, the well read you are, more often than not you will find that you will be able to write good as well. Okay, so those perspectives will come. Yesterday I had written an essay, knowledge is the true organ of sight, and I sent my answer to Baiju's team for evaluation, but I didn't get the feedback. So yesterday you wrote it. When is it that you would have sent it? You would have sent it sometime in the evening or afternoon. Please understand, there are many people who continuously on a daily basis they send it. So it will give us at least 48 hours of time period or 24 hours of time period to get it evaluated. Otherwise, you will get a very kind of a superficial evaluation that yes, it is everything is good. So what is the benefit of getting that kind of evaluation? Give it some time. Don't be in a hurry. In case you have not received in 1 week, then you send a reminder. Then you get after us. That is your right. Okay. Misbah, you are consistently asking about the prelims. See, we are dealing with the portion of the mains, but prelims, understand, in the prelims portion, don't try to have the completion of all the 100 questions in terms of your preparation strategy. Most of the times when we start the preparation for prelims, we think about those factual questions that UPSC has asked. For example, this year UPSC has asked about orangutan extracting ants with the help of a stick and then using it to eat. So everybody is now in a kind of a rat race to learn weird facts of life, but they are forgetting that the cutoff is 82 to 85 this year, 80 to 85 maybe. So they are forgetting that in the present day perspective, you have still got 40 to 45 basic questions where you commit mistake. You ignore that, okay, I have committed mistake, I cannot do. But then those questions that you have never come across, you still start running after them. So the moment you stop doing that, you will automatically get a direction in prelims. Okay. Um, Ilma, write a mail in that case. I'm still now up to the mark for current affairs. Revision and be regular. Okay. And math is weak. So CSAT is something which is getting tougher. But this year, a lot of hue and cry has been created around CSAT. So expect the CSAT to be a bit better. And in the case of CSAT, always the best form of practice is with the help of the PYQs. Tomorrow's class we will have from 7:30. How much marks can be good in the don't worry about marks. I always tell you that when you are writing the answer, even 0 marks is okay, as long as you are learning something out of it. From my own personal experience, I have seen candidates in the prelims test series who are consistently scoring 140, 130 in the various test series because they have cracked the pattern of those test series and they are unable to get through the prelims. And I've also come across candidates who regularly are in the phase of scoring 50, 60, 65, 70, 75, but they are extracting so much that by the last tests, the full length tests, suddenly their marks jumps to around 110, 115, and then they are easily through. So don't worry about the marks as of now. Okay. Now, can we come back to the topic? Option style will change or not? No, the option style for this year is expected to continue. Is NCRT mandatory? Because I have read only standard books. Any book that you are comfortable with, revise it 10 times. That is sufficient. Current Affairs monthly magazine should be good, Kirubagar. Okay. So now we come back to the topic with your permission. So let us first of all understand the meaning of the topic. A ship is safe in the harbor, but that is not what a ship is for. What is the meaning of this? It encourages taking risk and embracing challenges to achieve greater accomplishments and personal development. Good. One must become comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to grow and achieve one's true potential. Very good. One can unleash his or her potential when one can keep themselves out of the comfort zone. Good. So it talks about the aspect of what is a commonality in all of your points here is the comfort zone, isn't it? That is what all of you are stressing upon. Now, limitations to comfort zone. What are the limitations of getting into comfort zone? Yes, Dangar, a kind of a perfect manifestation of the real world. So person should explore and practice rather than restrict themselves in an area. So what are the limitations of the comfort zone? Less creativity, lack of motivation or aspiration, intellectual stagnancy, stagnation, untapped potential, creates own bubble. So can we say lack of exposure, lack of motivation and aspiration? There only you can elaborate upon lesser hard work. Okay. Persistent and persistence patient. Okay. Lack of knowledge. Rather than lack of knowledge, it will be better to talk about lack of learning, isn't it? I hope you will agree with this. That lack of learning is a better terminology. Lack of self awareness, self realization of what you are capable of. Yes. Wastage of resources. In what perspective, wastage of resources? Affect society, stagnation of growth, laziness, adversity help us to manage with hardship. But if we live in fear, then hardships will continue. Yes. So we don't explore anything. So that comes about fear of exploring, fear or inhibition. to explore. Lack of growth, that is where stagnation comes from. Okay, so these are your limitations for comfort zone. Now, here, once you have explored this particular area, and there will be many more limitations that you can bring to the table that you are consistently talking about. Yes, limiting personal growth as well. Limit in self growth. Now, here you have to also, so you are stressing, we all are right now stressing on the fact that a ship is safe in the harbor. That is the comfort zone. But that is not what a ship is for. So, what is a ship meant for? To explore. So, that gives you another aspect, that is purpose of life. Of life. So, what is the purpose of life here? Self discovery. Very good. Self discovery. To attain salvation, okay, to explore upliftment of society. We'll come to society later. To attain salvation, to unleash one's potential. The safest place for a particular thing is not what it is for, a person to have to take initiative and face the hardship. Yes. Discipline, seek new experience, self development. Here, intellectual development is what we are talking about. Grow, attain success, right? Aspire to be better, isn't it? Aspiration to be better. All of us, we have that aspiration that whatever we are, we have to be a better individual. We have to be better at something than what we are. So the moment that aspiration goes out of the window, that what we are the best, the world around us is something that the world has to deal with, but I am the best person, and I am doing what is absolutely ideal. I'm not doing any mistake. So in that case, there won't be any personal growth, is it? So that is where you have to be very decisive about the purpose of life also. Now, in the social context, magic begins at the end of the comfort zone. Good. Here, striving for excellence. Good. So in this only you can write aspire to be better, and then striving for excellence you can talk about. Now, society in general, open to new ideas, harmony, improve the quality of life. Of life. Service. Philosophy of service. Helping others. In time of need. Service to man is service to God. Service before self. All of these you can always highlight. Surround yourself with people who inspires you. Okay. Better place to live. Right. Very good. So that will come with this: create a better place to live. Okay. The parable of talents in Bible has the same meaning: put the things into use and improve instead of keeping it idle. So use that. Promote justice, equality, right? Cooperative society. So here you explore about the purpose of life, right? So what the ship is for is something that we have talked about. That portion of the essay we have talked about. Then the limitations of being in comfort zone we have talked about. So then here comes also the scope of, very briefly before the conclusion or in the portion of conclusion as well. So what and where improvements can be done. First, greater awareness, getting rid of prejudices, rid of biases and prejudices, greater exposure. It will come with awareness, education, right? Take risk to change the society from cluster, cooperative society, imbibe a sense of fraternity. So here also I would like to say that when you are writing these points, for example, self development, for example, greater level of awareness, so it can also happen that you provide a kind of a like a bullet pointer, but don't put a bullet point there itself. So for example, you can talk about that, you can write about like this. So sense of fraternity, let's suppose. So underline that and write about how the sense of fraternity can be induced or imbibed. So anytime when you are in the constant dilemma whether to provide that subheading or whether to go for a direct flow, this is a pathway in between. Please understand that underlining always increases the attention span of the evaluator, but does not mean that you underline everything out there. Okay, so please don't do that. Okay, but that is how you can improve the visibility of the points. Counter perspective for this topic is taking uncalculated risk can be very harmful as well. Yes, you can talk about that, but very briefly. Don't talk about that in detail. Okay, can we introduce the topic from Kabir's experience with respect to changing the society? Yes, you can. Yes, absolutely you can. For laying eggs, turtles have to come out from the sea. Yes. So when we write the essay, should we mention the heading like you can? You can. If you feel more comfortable doing that, absolutely do that. Okay. Accept the importance of women in economics, political, and societal development. I can understand the question, but I cannot write much. Start by only writing 100 words about it. Start with that. No need to write 1200 words. Write 100 words for that topic. Once you are able to do that, then after two or three attempts, go for 150 words or 200 words. Slowly and steadily take a step. Right? When a child learns to walk, or when a child initially, when they grow up, it is not as if, first of all, they learn to stand up. Then they learn to basically take a few steps. Walking is a very far-fetched idea, and then running is not even thought about at that point of time. So, as of now, try to stand up. So try to create 100 words out of any topic. You will find enough content to write 100 words. Okay. Giving back to the society. So Yes. A sense of purpose. As a purposeful living. Okay. Service before self, by turning pain and failure into purpose. Yes. Biggest risk a person can take is not to do anything. Yes. Okay. So, yes, here you can give the example of few of the government policies. For example, as Shakib, you have rightly pointed out, for having own domestic production, we need to stop imports. Yes, that is also correct. Okay. What if we do not agree with the statement given in the essay? Can't we write the counter perspective of the topic as an exam? It is not written the question whether we have to write in favor or against. No, absolutely not. It is not predefined that whether you have to adhere to the topic or you have to have a departure from that point of view. But then always advisable that in the majority of the portion of the essay that you are writing, you have to stick to or advocate about the topic and explore the how that topic is relevant. In the final stages, you can talk about briefly in one or two paragraphs, that is 50 to 70 words, about how, or even 100 words if required, how it is not always the case. In case there's a topic that you don't at all agree with, don't write an essay about it. Okay, don't write an essay. You will have other options to write an essay. And Bhardwaj, I'm confused with critically evaluate, critically examine. So we have a kind of a detailed video for the same, right? Send a mail at IS Live. They will direct you to the video for the same. I think we do have a particular video for the entire process. And how to arrange these from intro to conclusion. So the intro that you are going to write, if you are providing an anecdote, fair enough. If you are providing a quotation, fair enough. But after that, you need to explain the meaning, expand the topic, explain what the topic is for, right? So at the talk about it, that at an individual level, we, or as individuals, we experience limitations to growth because many of the times we are afraid to explore newer ideas, and that is where this particular quotation stands to be very apt in the modern scenario. You have expanded this, but this is not only restricted to the individual level but can be explored in various other ideas. So here you can talk about the purpose of life. So what is the purpose of life there? You talk about each of them in detail, then talk about the social context, what is the purpose. But the purpose of life is not only restricted to the individual level, but there is a larger purpose to be served by the society as well. The society is a mere reflection of our individualistic approaches and thought processes. So you talk about that very briefly. That will be your connecting paragraph between the individual and the society. And all the paragraphs, important such keywords such as individual, society, etc., underline them. After that, you move ahead. Okay. Intro and conclusion around 125 to 150 words. Can we write the story of a frog which is inside the well? Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. Okay. So, fear and danger live together, and several times fear creates us, or creates a situation for us not to take any decision so that our progress is stagnated. Okay. Now, we will be discussing the portion of questions which have appeared from education. So, education, neglect of primary health care and education in India are reasons for its backwardness. Now, here, this is as late as 2019 or as recent as 2019, depends on the perspective. Now, here you will find that this is a direct GS based question where neglect of primary healthcare and education are the reasons for its backwardness. So, here you will also get a scope to contradict this topic. You will also get the scope to talk about the topic in a adverse or you can talk about that there are other reasons for backwardness as well. There are social issues as well which holds us back. and that includes the reduced female participation, etc., in the workforce. Right? So there you have the scope. Destiny of a nation is shaped in its classrooms. By the way, in this, first of all, any issues in this topic? It is necessary to read Yojana Kurukshetra. We can, yes, Yojana and Kurukshetra gives you an idea about the government schemes, the various issues in implementing the government schemes. Can we write laws for education from constitution? Why not? Why not? It was discussed in the social. Oh, is it? Is has this topic been discussed in the social justice class? Yes, just for Yojana and Kurukshetra will also be sufficient. Okay, then you know this. Fair enough. Then I hope you won't find any difficulty in this. So, right. Then we'll do one thing. We'll discuss these other questions tomorrow. And basically, I will give you the overview of what to prepare in these questions. Now, here I will just ask you the basic. Now, do you think that it is important for you to highlight data pointers in this essay? Or can this essay be done without highlighting data pointers? What do you think? Your own opinion. Very good. It is needed. Okay, data pointers are needed. Which data pointers? Literacy rate, right? Literacy rate, male literacy rate, female literacy rate, then school enrollment ratio that you have. All of that, where do you get from? You get that from the Pratham and the Acer reports that are generated periodically, or from the economic survey data. You get that health indicators, you get that from the economic survey data in itself. Okay, now here, when you have these kinds of questions, always start from the historical perspective, that historically what was the condition of health system and education. Both were very good. Around, if we, in this particular land, if we go back more than 2000 years, the land that we all belong from, if we go back 2000 years, the condition of health care and the condition of education was something that the world would come here for. Right? You had learning centers at Takshila, Nalanda, Vikramshila, all these places were the learning centers which attracted scholars from the world. So education was good. And also, you had the healthcare, you had the Charak Samhita, you had Sushruta, all of them were pioneers in healthcare system as well. Ayurved was thriving in this area. Now, Ayurved nowadays is restricted, or in many of the cases, Ayurved nowadays is associated with a lot of forgery here and there, because and hukams here and there, because many of the people, in the name of Ayurved, what they are doing is they are propagating superstition. I'm attaching the caveat, many of the people, I'm not saying all. So you still have very learned Ayurvedic practitioners who do provide cure for various different ailments that people suffer from. So that idea of wellness, prevention is better than cure, and prevention before cure, that was promoted in this land. So the situation was very good. Then it deteriorated over a particular span of time, and again we have a task of going back up again. So that is where you have the scope for providing the historical perspective. So that is where I think we'll restrict it today. We will talk about this again tomorrow, and we will proceed. If we introduce with the poetry, do we have to explain that poetry in a couple of sentences? That how, so this also explains that why a ship is safe at the harbor, but that is not what a ship is for. So that is where you have to explain it. Yesterday, I have read the book Hello Buster. The book delves into the historical, socio-political, and economic factors that have led to the purpose of the story. Yes, so that is why I had suggested and recommended this book. Good that you have read it. And it is not much of a burden, is it? Would the data pointers make essay more of a GS answer and not a free-flowing thought on the topic, which the essay is really meant for? But that data pointer will authenticate your point of view, will provide punch to your argument. Don't fill it with data pointers, but here and there, spray it like the seeds in the farm. That will be sufficient. Okay. So Is it only after introduction that we can put in the later part of introduction as well? But rather than putting up a series of questions, many of the times we tend to lose a flow. So better to go for direct introduction. Okay. You will take geography class in Sunday? No, I don't have a geography class on Sunday. Tomorrow, Kirubagar, we will suggest all the and talk about all the various books that you can go through. I have already suggested you 4 to 5, 6 books, and tomorrow again more books I will talk about. So that is where we'll restrict it today. So we meet again tomorrow for the final time for the essay module, and that is when we will continue to develop our approach, what needs to be done. And till that point of time, take care of yourself. Goodbye. Thank you. Tomorrow we will have the session from 7:30. Okay, 7:30.